right, so let's talk about our next album here, Tom. Now, this one, we always talk about our late great friend, Mr. Bob Nalbandian.
Hmm.
Now, this is a band that I never even heard of until Bob. Bob did that Inside Metal series, as everyone
Yep.
knows about the LA Inside Metal series. And what was great about that series is when I would sit there and watch those, there was so many bands that he had in there from the 70s, especially, obviously, and some of the 80s, but mostly the 70s, bands I'd never heard of.
Yeah.
And I'm like, who is this? Who's this? So I remember I'd write them down on my
Yeah.
notepad and
Yeah.
everything just
Yeah.
to go back and check them out. And this was one of the bands I checked out, and I was like, whoa, man, I really dig this band, especially this album right here. We're talking about Legs Diamond. A diamond excuse me, a diamond is a hard rock. I mean, when did you hear of this band? Did you know this band back in the day at all?
No, I didn't. I probably
Okay.
discovered Legs Diamond probably 5 years ago, 6 years ago,
Okay,
right?
wow.
Yeah. So this
Okay.
album came out in 1977, right? And we
Mhm.
get into the weeds in a minute, but
Yeah.
maybe a little bit longer, but not that long. And I have no idea how. Maybe I think I was reading Rock Candy magazine or something. They had an interview, and they were talking about Kiss connections. I said, "Oh shoot, I got to look up these guys." And their first two albums, obviously this one is the
Mhm.
second, I think, and then the first album. Maybe they had some early before that, but they are again going back. We spoke about Dio in the previous one. This is a stellar album, start to finish. Their first one is fantastic. The third one is okay. It's kind of a little bit patchy.
Mhm.
They tried a different direction. This is a
Mhm.
band that never took off. They got on great tours. They toured with Styx. They toured with Kiss.
Ted
Going back
Nugent.
to
Mhm.
1977, a couple of albums: "Let There Be Rock," "Love Gone," "Bat Out of Hell," "Rumors," "Farewell to Kings." I mean, Jesus, how much better does it get to be in
Yeah.
that genre? And they never broke. They just stayed underground forever. But maybe that's what the appeal is right now. But for anybody who's watching this who don't know Legs Diamond are, that's going to blow your socks off.
I agree, man. Let's get into the weeds. The first thing I'm like, heard the name Legs Diamond. I'm like, what is that? And then I had no idea. So I guess it's named after an Irish American New York City gangster back in the Prohibition era.
Yep.
So I'm like, okay, we've got a little history there, gangster history. I had no idea, never heard of who Legs Diamond was. They were referred to in the 70s as the American Deep Purple,
Mm.
which, if you listen to this record, I mean, I wouldn't go that far to say they were Deep
No.
Purple, but I think because they had, some organ, some John Lordish organ, some of the
Yep.
songs. I mean, they even had some flute, like Jethro Tull flute in one or two of the
That's right.
songs. They kind of just, blended a bit of everything that was kind of happening in the 70s rock. American Deep Purple. I don't know.
I've never listened to Legs Diamond and went, oh yeah, there's a bit of Machine Head in
Never.
there. I can hear that on track too. That never came into my
Never.
mind ever. I did read that. It's like
No.
nonsense. If anything, it's just they're almost like I'm trying to think, they're not necessarily like a British band. They're just the name escapes me, but they were never even an underground band. They just never made it, right? They're one of
No.
those. They're just one of those bands. This album, the first album, that just constantly stays where it's at and gets resurrected through podcasts like this, and then somebody picks it
Mhm.
up and they go, "Oh shoot, that is good." And then, but it never did anything. And I know they changed direction significantly on their third album. Third album is okay. Track one is actually like Iron Maiden. I can't remember the name, but there's actually a Maiden-esque. There's a whole other story right there. But they did nothing with these albums. I love the singer Sanford, I think was.
Oh
his name.
yeah.
Love the singer.
Yep.
And they tried something, did a couple of covers on the third album, and then they were just gone. I think they're still periodically touring right now. I'm not overly familiar with discography like I would be with Dio or something, but I just think that they were kind of an obscure. That's what I'm looking for, like an obscure rock band. They were just kind of there but not there, all at the same time.
Yeah, you said, the thing that stood out to me about the band is the singer, Rick Sanford. I think he's got a great voice. I mean, he's got such a high range. I mean, excellent vocalist. What's interesting about this band, they have, like you said, they're a very obscure band, but there's one place in particular you go to, and they're massive. It's in San Antonio, Texas.
No, that I did not know.
Oh, you didn't know? Oh, yeah.
I did not know that.
Yeah, it's really interesting. When I got into them, I started like digging into these guys. Like, I got to find out more about them. They and the great podcast out there, Talk Louder. I don't know if you ever listen to that
No, don't
podcast with
know.
Jason McMaster. Oh, it's a great.
I know
You'd love
Jason
it, dude.
McMaster. Yeah.
Oh yeah, it's him and this other this journalist, both from Austin,
Hmm?
Texas. It's called Talk Louder. You should check it out. It's a great
Okay,
podcast.
I'll
Jason
take a note. Yeah.
McMaster. Yeah. Jason's a he's a great guy to listen to. They had let's see, they had the drummer Jeff Poole and the
Hmm.
guitarist Michael Prince.
Yep.
Who, Michael Prince actually went on. It's interesting. He actually went to playing keyboards for none other than Michael Jackson.
Hmm. Yep.
So, yeah, like I said, they were in the business. Some of these guys. He even played keyboards most recently for Beyonce and Usher, like a bunch of R&B bands. So this guy is like a LA, studio, I guess, guy now, or has been over the years.
Yep.
But yes, San Antonio, they're massive there. They literally, even up until recently, I mean, they used to sell out. I mean, they used to do at least one show a year there, is what they would do. And a lot of it was there was a radio disc jockey there.
Hmm.
I forget the guy's name. I don't think he's no longer, I believe, around. I think he might have passed a few years ago, but he was the guy that really basically got them a kickstart in Texas. And he was from San Antonio, and so for some reason he would just play them all the time in San Antonio. So they have a huge following there, which
But
is
that
very
often
interesting.
happens. Like Kiss's break was in Detroit. They were from New York. UFO were massive in Chicago, Wisconsin. It just happens. Sometimes you just get
It's
this
true.
pocket, and you just stay popular forever. You got all this legacy, like the dads bring up sons and all that kind of stuff.
Mhm.
So that's not an unusual story. I just didn't know San Antonio. I've got a good buddy in San Antonio, a bit younger than me, so maybe he doesn't know about them. I gotta ask him. If he knows who these are, then that's gonna blow my mind.
I think he should.
I
The
will.
singer Rick Sanford, he I think after the band broke, he moved there, and so I think he plays. So I think he did retire finally, but he was because I mean, with that kind of voice at his age, he's not gonna be able to hit those notes. So I think he finally just
Hell
stopped.
no.
But he basically moved there and would play his own gigs there and play the songs because I mean, it makes sense, right? You go to a place where everyone likes you and
Yeah.
knows who you are.
Couple of hundred people
Um,
turn up, make a couple of dollars, and beat it.
mhm, exactly. Yeah, what's interesting, like you mentioned too, with this album. So this is the second release. They're on Mercury Records. The first release too. I believe I think it's the self-titled. I think it's self-titled
First album is
debut.
fantastic as well. This is
It's
their glory.
fantastic too. Yeah,
Brilliant.
exactly. And they were both released 6 months apart
Yeah.
from each other in the same year in
Yeah.
'77. Again, those good old '70s, man. Um, but yeah, a Diamond is a Hard Rock. This album is definitely a little heavier than the first album.
Yeah, it is.
I think it's most people consider it to be their crown jewel record. Yeah, and like you mentioned, third record, they changed it a little bit. They tried to kind of fit in what was going on at the times. It didn't work out, and they kind of broke up after that.
Yeah.
And then I think they reformed about '84. It's kind of funny. I was in a record store not long ago. I was in a record store and buying some vinyl, and I saw it was how they put out in '86. I get the name of it at the top of my head, and I was like, "Oh, cool," because it's hard to find this band's records on vinyl. So I bought it. It wasn't cheap either, but I bought it, and it has its moments, but it's that '86 era where more synthesizer, definitely more commercial.
Production is different.
Yeah, they had a couple of the guys left the band. I think the rhythm section wasn't in anymore. Those were the guys that started the band actually, so they were no longer in it. So but it's interesting because this band has continued for years. I think they put out their last record in the mid 2000s.
Yeah. They got quite honestly, when I kind of, as we do, we research for the shows and whatnot, but then when you start digging in, you go, holy shit, they've how many albums? Like they've got quite the discography. And I kind of, now I'm going back discovering, because now I knew a little bit about album 3 now that I'm listening to. It's about 5 really good songs. The rest are just not that good or covers. So I have no interest in that. But one thing, again, you learn this, like Gene Simmons tried to sign these guys. Maybe didn't work out with Van Halen, so he gave these guys a shot. But we obviously in 76, 77, Kiss were like arguably masters of the world at that point. But, Gene Simmons tried to sign him. And like they toured, as I said, with Styx, they toured with Kiss, Ted Nugent, UFO. So it's not like they weren't given the breaks here. Like, I mean, UFO, Ted Nugent, Kiss, Styx in 76, 77, 78, ginormous bands, arena stadium bands. And they just never did it. They never got there.
Yeah. I mean, Alice Cooper.
Yeah,
Bob Seger,
huge.
Angel, Montrose. I mean, they played with so many bands.
Hmm.
Golden Earring. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's kind of funny because yeah, I mean, sometimes supposedly they would upstage some of the headliners, but and I guess this is what they wound up becoming sort of friends. I read
mm.
with the guys from Deep Purple. Speaking of being American Deep Purple, they attended each other's rehearsals. So I mean, they were definitely. Like I said, when you're attracting the likes of Gene Simmons and Kiss and these bands we were just
You're doing
mentioning,
something right. Like you're doing something right.
yeah.
You
And
know.
actually, Eddie Van Halen, David Lee Roth begged Legs to let Van Halen open for them.
Yeah, I read that. Yeah.
So I mean, again, it seems to me was like everyone in the industry believed in this band in terms of the musicians and some of the labels and so forth, but for some reason the
You
fans
never
just
got it.
didn't buy onto it. They
You know
never
what I
caught
did,
on to
like
it.
when we, like when, and I got to give a tip of the hat to you, Matt. You like the content for these shows is all Matt, so I'm not really involved in that. But you always have good content. So when you sent it in like a couple of weeks ago, I said, "Fuck, brilliant!" Right. So then that makes me going to go deeper again, like bring the dogs for a walk, driving. And I was like, a couple of weeks ago, and I knew the album pretty well, but I just got reacquainted with it. And like in 4 or 5 songs in, going, God damn, this is fantastic. And now I'm
Right?
going down the Legs Diamond rabbit hole. I don't need to get into the other
Yeah.
ones. I know that back to front, but now I'm going down
Yeah.
that rabbit hole, and there's some misses in there, obviously, for what we talk about. But one thing I love about albums generally, from about 75 to 81, is the production. You could put an album on, you go, I don't maybe not know the year, but the era. I love the production on this. It's just
Mhm.
like meat and potatoes, great sound, not overproduced. Doesn't have,
Yes.
it's not like some
Mhm.
of the early Sabbath albums were terribly produced, and then some of the 80s albums were overproduced. It just has that
Mhm.
real easy middle ground. I don't know
Straightforward.
what it is. I
Yeah,
can't even describe it. I just love the sound of that late 70s. 76 to
I do
81
too.
is my go-to for sound. I love it.
Mhm. Yeah. No, I mean, like, it's just there's something about this band. I mean, even in 1990, the album Town Bad Girl came out on Metal Blade Records.
Hmm.
Again, is Brian Slagle believing in this band
Yeah,
even
that's
in
it. Yeah, think about
1990?
that.
If you think about it, I mean, 1990, this band's a 70s band. But yeah, as I was mentioning before about the whole San Antonio thing, it's just that was the guy's name, Joe the Godfather Anthony. That was his
Okay.
name.
Hmm.
He was the guy who really, I mean, he put, like I said, a bunch of guys on the map back then. And like I said, it's kind of funny how they're still, like I said, I think they played a show. The last show they played there was, I think, 2022. They did a show there. Like I said, I don't think, supposedly had been writing some music. It was the last we'd
Yep.
heard. They were supposed to put out an album. Probably not going to happen. I mean, you never know, but I haven't heard
I
anything
doubt it. I
since
don't
then.
think
So
anything.
I
I'd probably
doubt.
sell
Yeah.
one. It'd sell two copies, me and you probably. But the
Yeah.
Legs Diamond are the type of band that if they came to me, I would travel to see these guys. I'd go an hour just
So
to
would
check the
I.
box. I'd
Totally.
have fucking no idea who was on the stage. By the way,
Mhm.
like they could put up anyone up there, and I go, maybe is he original? I
Mhm.
don't know. He looks 70, so maybe it is. But I just go for a night out. Like I went to see White Lion. We spoke about that a couple of months back, maybe 2 months ago. Obviously just Mike Tramp and some good players. But I was never a huge White Lion fan back in the day. But I went to see him because it was a good night out with a couple of beers. And that's exactly what I
Mhm.
would do with this. Now, I think this is a far superior band than White Lion, but I
Mhm.
think they have enough songs. I don't know if they could do a tour. I think what they would do well on is a cruise. Like get on one of the cruises and do kind of some of the nostalgia dates and maybe the
Yeah.
hot markets.
Mhm.
There's no market for
Yep.
Legs Diamond new music. Nobody's going to buy that. Nobody cares.
No. No, no one cares about it. I mean, I even as much as I love this, I don't really care.
I don't need to hear a new Legs
Like,
Diamond song.
I don't think none of us do.
No.
And, one of the things too I did read was, what could have maybe affected them having more success was the personnel change. And we see this all the time that happens at labels when a
Yeah.
band gets signed, this personnel changes. And I guess that happened at Mercury shortly after those albums
Yeah.
came
The
out.
new guy says no.
New guys comes in
Yeah.
and they were clashing with management. And basically, a new guy comes in and says, "Okay, this isn't my band.
Yeah.
So
Sheldon. Yeah. That's right.
see ya, go somewhere else." And that I guess did
Yep.
happen to them at the time. Yeah, I mean, the one song that they did have on this record and we'll get into talking to some of the songs here.
Mhm.
But we'll start with that before we get into that. But yeah, the first song, "Diamond is a Hard Rock," that is just a great
I can sing it in my head, like a
hard-hitting track,
diamond is a
right?
hard rock. I mean, I'm
Rock,
singing it right
yeah.
now as you're talking about
Oh,
it.
yeah. Yep. Ass kicking song. Then you got sort of a heavy psychedelic song with Waiting, another
Brilliant.
excellent song.
Yep.
Long Shot and Jailbait, the next two ones, those are kind of your standard,
Yep. Straightforward.
maybe a little bit of a fill or two, straightforward, nothing like, groundbreaking over the top. I think I got it. It's more up tempo, kind of like Diamond is
Yep.
a
I
hard
think I
rock.
got it. Yeah. Yeah.
Evil, that's the one that has sort of the flute, so it has a little Jethro Tullish in it.
Yep.
A little bit mid tempo, a great track. Little, another one of your standard, straightforward
Mm.
rock songs, and Flying Too High, which to me is just a great way to finish that record, like a nice groovy blues laden track. Now,
Yep.
Rock Candy Records re-released the band's first three records back in 2018, and it had some remastered tracks too that were on here, or some unreleased tracks. Track called High School Queen and Teaser, and It Takes More Soul.
Oh yeah,
Were the
Teaser. That's
demos.
the Tommy Bolin song. Yeah.
Oh, it is okay. I didn't
Yeah,
even
it
know
is
that.
actually,
Okay,
and they
yeah.
do, and it's a phenomenal version because here's how I know about that one because when
Mm,
I just put it onto Apple Music, the remastered version came on, so I just let it play, and then the
mm,
the beginning of Teaser came on, and I went, "What the fuck?" And I said, and it was their version of it, and it's a phenomenal version.
yeah.
And I
Yeah,
mean,
no, it's
and the
great.
original came out in 75, I would guess. He died in 76, so 75, 76. So they must
Mm,
have just recorded that like just a couple of years after, and then that got shelved or was on a B-sides or something. But it's a great track, great version.
yeah, and of course, the biggest song on the record was the song "Woman,"
Yeah,
which is like a 6
yeah,
minute. I mean, vocals in that are just it's
phenomenal.
all him. It's just all him on on
Yeah,
that track.
phenomenal. Yeah, great
Yeah,
voice.
yeah, and I guess that is the track that in San Antonio and in Texas in general, that's the song that kind of put them on the map there that people loved.
And did you
From
say
what
they
I was
tour? Are they
reading.
still on? Are they finished touring now? Or they do the San Antonio circuit now and again? Or are they doing like
Nah,
fairs and shit like that?
no, they don't, unfortunately. Like I said, the
Okay.
last was, I think it was around, they were supposed to have a new record to come out in 2023. It didn't happen. Like I said, I believe they last played a show in 2022, I believe, down in San Antonio. And they would occasionally, of course, play in LA as well, since they were based out of there. But I don't think there's been any action in the band 3 or 4 years. You know what's kind of
Hmm.
crazy is, a couple of years ago, was this band, when I started Aftershocks, me and Chris, we were interviewing this band. The name of the band's called Sons of Silver. They're kind of like
Mhm.
just like a rock band, like a blues rock, kind of regular
Yep.
rock band. And the singer, this guy, Peter Argyropoulos, is just a great dude. And me and Chris really got along with him. And so we were like championing the band.
Hmm.
When they started, they had, I think it was the original drummer from Pearl Jam was in it. And they had the bassist who had been in the Candlebox, this guy, Adam Curry,
Okay.
who I didn't realize when I interviewed him and Peter a few years ago when their new album came out, Sons of Silver. I had no idea that Adam Curry was actually been the bassist for Legs Diamond since '92. Because
Ah,
I would have completely asked
no
him
idea.
about him. I had
Yep.
no idea he was with them, or else I would have totally. I was kind of like when I read up on him, like, oh, I wish I would have known that. I would have totally. I mean, I don't know if I would have asked him on that interview, but I would have definitely been like, hey, you want to maybe talk on the side here
He probably would
about
have
Legs
loved it,
Diamond?
honestly, because I don't think he
Oh,
gets asked.
totally.
I think he would have just went straight in there. He said, "Okay, let me grab a beer. Let's go." You know?
Probably. I mean, yeah,
Yeah,
because no one really asked him about that band. I
that's
mean,
right.
like I
Or nobody
said,
knows.
if yeah, definitely check out if anyone wants to know more about the band and same with you, Tom. Go check out Talk Louder, Jason McMaster podcast. They did an
Yeah, I'm
interview
going to
with the
do
two
that.
guys from there, and they go through the reasons why they were huge in San Antonio and everything.
Yep.
It's a really great interview. Great interview.
Yeah, love it.
Excellent band. Yeah, I mean, in terms of are they going to ever play again? I don't know. I
Probably not.
would,
I mean, they're mid
like I
seventies
said,
now. It's you know.
and again, and because they're not a known house, not even a semi-known household name, they never had even one semi-hit. Like I said, Woman, not
No.
really a hit. I think because of that, people are going to be like, "Who's this? Who's Legs Diamond?"
Yeah,
I
I
mean,
mean, and the only people know. I mean, we barely know about them. Like, if you were to say to me right now, name 10 of their albums, I couldn't even do that. So even though we're
oh no,
fans of these early albums, I'm not a connoisseur of
no,
their collection, their discography. So I think they're like similar to the Dio conversation. Every band has that kind of golden years, and their golden years really were their first two, and that was it. And they weren't even the golden years. They were like, it's a funny one. It's a strange
yeah,
one.
it is. It's they were because in the 70s, the late 70s, there, I guess, he said 77,
Yep.
79, around that era, there were those bands in LA, right? Bands like Angel.
Yep.
They were part of that sort of circuit. Detective. I remember interviewing the band Detective. I remember interviewing
Yeah.
that guy, Michael Daybars. You know who he is, that guy, Michael
Not just
Daybars?
in it, not him, but I know the band Detective. I know of them. Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Right, because they were on Jimmy Page's label,
Yeah.
Detective, is what
Yeah.
they were.
Yeah.
The singer, Michael Daybars, he was actually an actor. He was on like MacGyver and all this stuff.
Hmm.
He did some acting in LA in the 70s. Again, he was in Bob's Inside Metal series,
Yeah.
Michael Daybars. A very, he's an English guy. He was with, I think the name of what was the name of that band he was in from England back in the early 70s? I forget. But anyway, it's funny. We interviewed him on Aftershock some years
Mm.
ago, and I brought up he was in Detective, and I brought up. I said, I mentioned him with Legs Diamond, so he almost like hated the fact that I put Detective in the same boat as Legs
Oh,
Diamond.
interesting.
Yeah, he wasn't happy. But I remember later on, I remember
Yeah. Yeah.
asking Bob, like, "Am I right on that?" And he said, "Oh, you're absolutely right." I said, "Okay," So, but yeah, there was those bands. And those were like the bands again. Gene Simmons, right? That was Angel was Kiss's band, right? It was on. He signed
Yeah.
on, I believe. I think he's the one that worked with them. So
Yeah.
again, this is a band Legs Diamond that was in that sort of arena of those 70s, late 70s hard rock sort of semi metal bands that I think because of Van Halen, it's just Van Halen just blew everyone else away, and so those bands were just kind of left to dust. And then, of course, the '80s was all about the the bands that
Yeah.
basically emulated Van Halen.
Yeah.
You know,
That's
and
actually that's a fair
you know,
point because 79, like this obviously came out in 79, and then like 2 years later you had Motley Crue and Shout at the
exactly.
Devil, whatever, and that was like the energy. Like these would have been seen as probably old fogies at that point, and they were
Hmm.
probably in their late 20s. But then you had Motley's and the Rat and Doc and whoever was coming up at that point. Led Zeppelin, Deep Purple, they were dinosaurs. They were gone. Rainbow were dinosaurs. These guys were
Hmm.
kind of nowhere. They were just
Hmm.
they going back to that, where they were just obscure. They never hit it with anybody special enough. But that doesn't mean it's not a great album. It is. And how many more Legs Diamonds are out there that we don't know? There could be a shit ton of bands. There
Hmm.
could be another
Oh yeah.
podcast on right now talking about some band, and we were going, "Who the hell are these guys?"
Hmm. Well, that's been one of the best things I think about. If yeah, of course, we know metal, hard rock, what have you. It's not as prevalent in our, in the youth or the society as it once
No,
was. But the good
no,
thing about that is it gives this. There was people forget. I think a lot of times there was so many. The labels signed so many bands back then. I mean, they were just trying to find a
they
new thing.
did.
They were throwing money around like nuts.
That's right.
Everybody was getting signed. So what was great about not having any maybe newer music to really dig our heels into, we can go back to that period, the 70s especially, really. There's
Yeah,
so much
yeah,
in the 70s I've discovered over the last like 10 to 15 years I never heard of before that are phenomenal bands. And again, these are bands that
yeah,
maybe not a lot of people know of, fly well under the radar, but they were signed on decent labels. Just like you said, maybe we're given a couple albums. Because remember back then too, these bands were given at a minimum 2 albums, if not 3 at minimum, to take off. I
yeah,
mean, they were patient with them, they let them develop. And here's Legs Diamond, another band, had 3 albums, didn't take off, didn't do much, with
mm.
the opportunities they had. But like you said, nevertheless, listen, not every band is going to be successful, right? It's just one of those things. It doesn't mean they weren't good,
Listen, there's a
but
thousand bands out there I could talk about, and you could talk about, and we've spoken about them. But back then, even back to the early Kiss records, whatever, you do your album, you do your tour, sells nothing. So then the manager says, and studio says, okay, get back in the studio, do another one. That sold nothing, and then you do another one, then you do
Mhm,
another one, and then obviously, like Alive broke Kiss. Like they weren't going to have an album number 4 if Alive didn't do what it did, and
yeah, exactly. Great point.
these guys
Mhm,
weren't going to go anywhere. I think, like, because the third album, they just basically fucked it up and went backwards, and that was it. It was over.
mhm. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, but nonetheless, great record. Legs Diamond and Diamond is a hard rock.
great
If
album.
you haven't checked it out, check it out. It's a great 70s record and
All right.
something everyone should listen to. Absolutely.